Have you ever thought of starting your own business? Making your life your own? Now's the time. To get started. Welcome back to Starting a Business Simplified. I'm your host, Suzy Rains. And in this episode, I have special guest Jenny Roth. She's a sales copywriter and has been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years. She helps with relationship building through copy and your sales funnels. One of the things that we talked about in this episode is email. Do you need a list? What should be on the list? Who should be on your list? Should you be sending to the people on your list? I share some of my own personal stories of my own communication and relationship building through email. And she shares some amazing tips on what you can be doing to build that relationship with the people that are on your email list. So this episode is filled with useful tips. I took lots of notes and ways that you can improve your copywriting, as well as ways to work with Jenny if you're interested. So let's get into the episode. Jenny, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Suzy. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to get to visit with you more today.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm so excited for this topic. So I'm really, really excited that you're here. This is such a huge thing that I know new business owners like myself, as well as people thinking about starting a business, we're already doing all the things, and this is one more thing. And if we're not already comfortable and fluid with writing, for me, I know it was a huge roadblock for me because I'm a podcaster. I could talk all day long. Tell me to sit down and write something out. And I'm like, oh no, like, what do I do there? So I'm really happy that you're here to share a little bit about what it is that you do, but also share your story of how you got started.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. So, hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Roth. I'm a copywriter. So I really specialize in writing sales pages for coaching programs, group programs, one-on-one, all the things. And I also specialize in writing emails. And the reason I love writing these things, especially sales pages and emails, is because I just find it to be just so cool. We can get the heart of a business owner and their mission onto paper and really speak to their ideal clients and just have that in emails they can repurpose, and a sales page they can use to drive traffic to all the things. I think it's really, really cool. So how I got here is when I was 22, I got married really young, just right out of college. And my husband and I had 3 little girls right in a row. I think at one time I had 3 kids, 4 and under or something like that. So I, graduated college. I was, just getting started in the workforce. And I had all these little kids. And, when they were all sleeping through the night and everything, and I could breathe for a minute, I just kind of was thinking like, I had an hour to myself, maybe at nap time or when they went to bed or whatever, and I would use it to like clean my house or scroll Facebook or all those things we do. And I thought, no, I've got to fill, even if I just have 30 minutes a day, I really want to fill it with something. I had some criteria, right? It has to make a difference for someone else. I have to be able to do this from home, and it has to be something that I like doing. So writing was always something that I was kind of good at school. So I just kind of very audaciously started pitching myself to local magazines for article writing. A couple said yes. And I moved up to become an editor of one of those magazines. They let me do that from home. And I grew up in a family where my dad is an entrepreneur. He started a business before I was born. He still runs it today. So in this magazine that I was an editor for, we would do a lot of articles on community businesses. And they would write to us and say, thank you so much. After you wrote this article for me, we've seen an uptick in traffic. We've gotten so many compliments. People are noticing us, all these things. And I knew, like, from how I had grown up with a business, business owning family, how much that meant to like them and their families. And I just thought it was so cool. So just fast forward a little bit, a coach in my vocalish to me wanted to hire a podcast writer. And she put out a job description and I applied and I went through this like thorough test project, like writing process. And I got the job, and I think it paid me like $100 a week. And I was just so thrilled. And there it just really has taken off. So this was back in 2014 is when I started magazine article writing. And now, we're in 2024 as we record this. So from there, I realized the world of copywriting, that I could actually help business owners like make money and do like really incredible things by doing something I love so much, writing and being at home with my family. So I dove in to learn everything I could, and it's just slowly just grown year after year. So I'm really thankful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And what I love is you came from an entrepreneurial family. I have another
Mhm.
guest who I'm going to be talking to later. Similar, she has a family who were entrepreneurs. And I think there's something to that where I can tell in when you were speaking about your story and where you came from, how much of it is in your heart, like helping other business owners because you have that. That's how I grew up. That's what I came from. And when you were doing the article writing, how much it impacted the small business owners. And that's honestly, that's me too. Like I didn't come from I say that and I actually did come from that. Now that I think about it, I'm like, I grew up in Alaska and my dad and my grandfather made hunting knives and they would sell them at the local tour shops. And I always think online, I always think shop, like we had our own store kind of thing as a business owner. I don't think of craftsmanship and just going and selling it. But it is like, it really is so many things that what we're doing means so much to everybody. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is because we are going to talk about specifically, we're going to talk about email and writing and things like that. But it's that the heart of it, when somebody reads something that you write, when you have the energy and the heart behind it, it means something. If you just write it to just get it out the door and just be done with it, it doesn't make as big of an impact. And so just hearing your story and hearing how much heart you have in what it is that you get to do it at home, you get to be with your family and you make money. That's beautiful. That's what I love to do for people. I love to bring that into their world and say, look, you can find something you love and turn it into a business, turn it into something that generates profit for you, income for your family, you get more time, and you do something that you love. So I'm really happy that you're here. Thank you for coming today.
Oh, of course. I love that story about your dad and your grandpa. And I relate. Like, I never heard the word entrepreneur growing up, right? Like, that was definitely like a word my dad or my mom that were entrepreneurs, they raised cattle. And so, when we were writing articles for small businesses, and I'd be like, man, I go into the store all the time. And like, I've gone into the store for years and I had no idea of the owner had this incredible story and how they got started and all the other work that they do and just the story behind their products and what they do. And I was like, man, people need to know about this. And so, yeah, I really caught the bug and just really love telling those stories.
Yeah, I love that you bring up that we're not aware. So when we go into a shop, so thinking
Mhm.
online versus actual brick and mortar going to a store. So we go to a store and we don't know the story because they have a storefront. We can actually see the open sign and we physically can go in the store. And so
Right.
we don't really think, oh, there's a human person, family owner, somebody attached to that store that has
Yeah.
a story of how that store existed, what brought them to actually open the doors. And then online, it's almost like the opposite, where we have to tell our story
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's an ocean of open businesses that they're all blended together and we don't really stand out unless we have something that stands out that's different. So
Yeah.
I would love to I know what our topic is email and I want to kind of stick to that for personal reasons really, because I'm actually going through that right now. And I think I would love to pick your brain and people can listen in and be like, oh, that's a good idea. When we focus on email and what it is that you specialize in, would you explain a little bit about how your copywriting differentiates from anybody else that does copywriting when it comes to writing copy for emails?
Oh, that's such a good question. And this is a question everyone should be able to answer for their business, right? Like, how do you do, like, not what you do, it's how you do it, right? So I love
Mhm.
this. Yeah. Okay. So I write email copy for clients. I have a little, in this side of my business, a little micro agency. So it's myself and Ange, another girl who helps me. And whether we're ready for e-commerce or coaches or service providers, I think what sets us apart is that we are super heavy on market research and client voice and telling again those stories so that the personal brand, the face behind the brand, it's not just like we're buying a candle or like we're buying a coaching program. Like, I really want people to know that business owner and understand like where they were coming from and why they made the thing and what makes it special. So I think my copy process is really, really rooted in client voice research. We do a lot of market research and client surveys up front to know who we're speaking to and to use their language. And then we really bring it together, making it personality packed, right? So we really write how people talk. We have Grammarly. That is a really great software. If anyone listening wants an editing software, it's affordable. It's called Grammarly. So that dots the I's, puts the commas in. But we write how we speak. We write how this business owner would speak to their clients if they were sitting down and having a cup of coffee, right? So we're really heavy on brand voice and giving business owners the permission to be themselves and let their ideas and their voice forward.
I love that. And it's so important because that's something I've thought about personally. I'm like, man, I would love to hire a copywriter to write some things for me. But in my mind, I'm like, but then it's not me because it's somebody else writing it. Yeah. So I love that you take the time and actually find out what that is. The episode that just went live today is about finding your voice, and it's talking to a person who I have to be able to tell you as the writer, this is who I am, and like have that open dialogue and that vulnerability so that you can then be in my brain and like, this is something that Suzy would say. This totally makes sense for her. And if you're going to say something with personality, this is the personality that's going to come forward. It's not Jenny, it's actually Suzy or the brand. So meaning, again, for the listeners, for those of you that follow me, I talk about our businesses being separate, but I'm the face of my brand. I'm the face of what it is right now. But as I grow and hire and have more staff, then you're really talking for the entire brand. A lot of people get confused on that and they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, it's its own thing. It has its own voice. It has its own personality. It's like and it starts with a person. And so I love that. I love that you take the time to do that and to do the research around it because that's so, so important. So when we talk about email specifically, what are some things that you help people with when it comes to, let's go back to very beginning. Do we need an email list?
Yeah. The $1 million question. Probably everywhere you look online will tell you yes, right? Like your business coach, like probably everybody is telling you need an email list. I really feel like I always tell people like email isn't the magic, like you are the magic, right? Like people want to hear from you. Email is one way that they can do that. And it's great because like you own the platform, right? So you have more control. We've all heard that, right? You don't own your social media, all those things, you own your email list. So whether or not you do need an email list, I never would say to anybody like, you need an email list. To make money, you've got to have an email list. Like, I just wouldn't do that. I don't feel like approaching it with that kind of energy is beneficial to anybody at all, because then you're sitting down like, oh, now I have to read these emails and I don't even want to. I know what to say. So I don't say that you need an email list. However, if you want to add email as a marketing channel to your business, if you have the capacity and the space and the desire to do that, it is a wonderful channel that you can add. People even start with their email as like their core content for the week and then repurpose it to social media or other places, right? So yeah, I would never tell anyone they need an email for their marketing, but if you want to include it, it is a great tool that is available to you. Yeah.
So what do you recommend for use of email? Because I know that building relationship is just such a huge thing. And I will tell you, for me, my experience, when I would do a specific thing. So for example, I do workshops. So when I would have a workshop to sign up, I would get people's email and then they would get a notification we're doing the workshop. So I have their email and they agreed to receive emails from me. Okay. So I had a list, and what would happen is they would get the emails for the workshop. They'd attend the workshop. They'd get the email for, thank you for coming to the workshop, whatever. And then a month later, however time goes by. And then I'm like, oh, I have this announcement. I want to tell everybody about it. So I would send out an email to my whole entire list, and it could be people that went to a workshop. It could be podcast listeners. It could be anybody in my list. And what I always found is because my email list were people that I had developed a relationship with in one way or another, whether they were a podcast listener or a workshop person, or I had a conversation with them, I met with them in some way, those emails got read. Versus if I just did a lead magnet and got a whole bunch of people who I'd never talked to before, and those emails, and I did have an example of that in the very, very beginning of my business where I was doing a lead magnet, but the people that signed up, they weren't ideal clients. And I'm always transparent with my listeners. So so that you know, I collected a bunch of emails that weren't even people that I would have worked with because I didn't have my marketing properly done the way I should have had it done. I was brand new. I didn't know anything. So I had all these emails, but they weren't even people that I normally would have talked to anyway. And those emails didn't get opened. So I feel like I kind of had this little market research thing that I had done accidentally.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me that people always opened my email when I did like one big email to everybody to say, hey, I'm doing a new program, or hey, I've got something new happening, because they had been in something that I had already established a relationship. So with all that being said, how do you work with email as far as when to send out, what to send out? Should it be a lead magnet? What advice would you give around just working with people and writing emails?
Yeah, I love this. So everything you're saying, I relate to it so much. So I would say across the board, what I know too personally from being a business owner and helping other business owners and, helping them create strategies and being behind the scenes, right? It's like, no matter what's going on in the economy or the algorithm, like people always it comes back to people buy from people that they know and that they like and trust, know, like, trust. We've all heard that in business. And it's so true. Like the business owners who I write for, who are having great success with their email list, they have a proven offer. So that means that they have an offer that they have sold. They know it has a demand for it in the market. They know who they're talking to. And that takes some trial and error and testing to get to sometimes too. They have an offer that they have sold, and they have a way of building an audience and a community, right? Whether that's a podcast, going on a podcast tour, workshops, YouTube, collaborating. They're like building relationships, and they get people onto their email list. And of course, think about when you open emails, do you look at the from line or the subject line? For me, I almost always look at the from line. I sometimes, if it's a really a subject line, I'll open it because of the subject line, but almost always I'm opening emails from the people I want to hear from, right? I would probably never really open an email from a stranger. That just doesn't even make sense, right? So yes, to everything you're saying. And so ways you can build your email list, a lead magnet is great. If you're doing something like you're doing stuff like what Suzy and I are doing right now. Like we're talking, we're meeting each other, and then I'll leave my lead magnet in the showroom. So you've heard my voice, you know who I am, you trust Suzy. If you want my free thing, I won't be a stranger in your inbox. So I do think there's a place for a lead magnet. I also think there's a place for a lead magnet potentially if you run ads to it and you're just trying to build your list that way. And your lead magnet really ties to your paid offer, right? So it's you've gotten my free thing, and now you might also want this other thing. And it's a very clear connection between the two, and the pitch to your offer makes total sense. Other ways that are simpler, if you're I do not want to build a lead magnet right now, to build your email list is you can just promote your Kirsten Roldan. She leads $1 Million Email. And I've heard this idea from her. So she just says, promote your newsletter. Name your newsletter, make it about something, say it's sales page copy tips or business building, whatever. Have your newsletter be the thing that you promote, and the people are signing up to your list because they want that newsletter. So of course they're going to open it and want to hear from you. So yeah, I think those are both really great strategies.
I love that. And I love looking at the from line versus the subject line. That is golden right there, because it's true. I look at the from line, and I know when I sign up for something, and I'm going to be transparent here, when I sign up for something that I really want to see what that free thing is, or that even if it's a paid thing and it's a low dollar thing, I want the thing. I may not want the relationship with the person. I actually just want the thing. And so what happens is they end up in my inbox, and I'm I didn't want to talk to you. I just wanted your thing. Right. And not in a negative way, but just what they were offering. And most of the time, it's usually a lower paid offer. I did want the thing. What they had was really important to me, and I do want that. But I wasn't at the point where I wanted to have a relationship. Maybe later that might come up. But there's we all think of it differently. We don't necessarily sign up to say, I want to be in a relationship with you. We sign up for whatever it is that thing is. So like, I love the newsletter idea because the newsletter is information. So it's like, I'm signing up to get more information from you, which then can lead to learning more about the writer, learning more about the person who's doing the newsletter, that it then turns into a relationship, but you're actually getting what it is that you asked for. And just the one time thing, it's like, I just wanted the one thing, where a newsletter is like, oh, I'm getting it every month, or I'm getting it every other week, or whatever the time frame is for that. So I love that. That's something that I'm working on so for the listeners out there, for my podcast, you can sign up and get notified when a new podcast goes live. It's on my website. And that's one of the things that I like to offer to people, for those people that are like, man, I just want to know and I do an episode every week. So they're going to get an email every week from me, but it is podcast driven. So it's like, this is what we're talking about, is the actual podcast. So I love the newsletter idea. That's a beautiful thing. What that you recommend? I know the newsletter is pretty straightforward as far as what goes into the email. What are some of the emails that you would send to people that are on your email list for that, the purpose of actually getting to build that relationship with them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I have a couple ideas that I can share. So one idea that I've tested a lot and that I really love is at the top of the month, usually at the top of the month. I guess you can do it at the end of the month too, but I'll send out an email that's basically, and you can do this a variety of ways depending on like your business model and your energy and your calendar space and all those things. But I'll open up like either a limited number of, like, you can call them coffee chats, right? It's like, hey, do you want to just get on a call with me for 30 minutes? And maybe you have a copyright question that has just been eating at you, and we can just like have 30 minutes together and just talk, right? But also opened up my calendar to mini editing sessions. Like, I'll get more specific about it. Like, bring something you're working on for 30 minutes. You've got me, like, let's do this. So basically, I call it the opening up your calendar email, which is not that, but is there some way that you can open up your calendar to your email list at the top of the month in a way that doesn't burn you out, and you can charge for it low ticket too, or something like that? Like, you can be as creative as you want to be with it, but like, you're basically opening up your calendar like, hey, I have 10 spots. This is what we can do. Like, grab one if you want, and I do this once a month. So I think opening up your calendar to your list is a beautiful thing to do. I also think then, like, the reverse of that is like sharing your calendar with them. So if you're releasing podcast episodes this month, if you're speaking over here, if you're doing this stuff, like at the top of the month or any time in the month that you can, share with people like, hey, this is where I'm going to be this month. If you want to come to any of these trainings, or if you want to get in on any of these conversations, I just want to let you know. So kind of that opening up your calendar to having conversations with people is something that I have loved doing with my email list, either again through that free calendar time with me, or I've done like really low ticket, like $27, $37 like mini audits or edits or feedbacks or kind of things, so that people can really get to know you and, speak with you face to face and kind of put a face behind the email too.
I love that. I love that I wrote down the open calendar, because I was just thinking, I do a back office simplified workshop. It's a workshop, so they're actually doing something, but I was just thinking I could do a back office audit. So what's going on in your back office? And I love that you identified, because I always teach people on this, managing your time and managing your calendar is having a number of slots. So saying, I have 5 slots open, and really limiting that. And I'm speaking mostly to the listeners now, because I'm like, in this, we have to be mindful of our calendar. So it's not like, open your calendar to anybody and everybody on your list. You can have like 300 people on your list, but being really specific and just making boundaries around it, and just saying, yeah, I have 5 slots that I leave open. This is what I do for them. If you want to grab one. I love that. That's such a good idea. And then also telling people where you're going to be, what you're doing. Just, hey, I'm going to be at this thing. I go live once a week when my podcast when it goes live, I go live I have a private Facebook group community for the podcast listeners. So that's one that I can send out an email that says, hey, to my podcast listeners, I'm going to be going live and I'm going to be talking about this particular episode. And I have my guests come into my Facebook group live. So that's something like, now that you've recorded with me, I'll be like, Jenny's going to come live with me in my Facebook group, and we're going to talk about whatever we're going to talk about, and invite people to that through the email. So I think those are great examples. Love that.
Yeah.
See, I'm getting my own help here on the podcast.
I do that with my podcast guests too. I'm like, man, I love it so much. No, I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, and if you're looking for like another way, I always think a really simple way too that you can kind of like promote your services, but also you're like building that relationship is I will sit down and think like, okay, even if you don't want to gather client testimonies and you don't want to write a full case study, which can be a lot, you can just sit down and think like, okay, what is one way that I like really help somebody this week, right? Like somebody came to me with this question or this challenge, but I really helped them, right? Think about something like that. Send an email. I kind of do this one on Fridays. I call it like my weekly win and learn. And, and it's kind of fun to do on a Friday too. I go over one thing, like a win, like a celebration, and like how I helped a client. Like, man, this week this client came to me and like, I'm so celebrating this. And if you want to, you can put a learn on it as well. So like, man, here's one like struggle I kind of went through this week and what it taught me. It's a really simple way to be reflective in your business. And it's kind of fun to write. And your audience will love it because it makes you so very real and human. And at the same time, you're sharing the things you're working on in real time so they can imagine what it's like being in your world, being your client and things like that.
I was watching a YouTube podcast person. That was one of the tips that they gave. They said, if you want to grow your audience, share what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I love that for email content. Like it's just another way of reaching out to people and just saying, hey, I'm a person, I'm a business owner. I'm in this with you. Like I think that really builds that relationship when you say you're not alone. We're in this together because our audiences, those are our people. Those are the people that we were in the world with. That's what we're sharing with. We're not just working for them or providing a service. I guess that's the difference. This is where my brain kind of goes, I don't provide a service. I'm like a partner. Like I want them to win as much as I win. And this is it. We're in this together versus here, let me just give you some stuff. Let me give you some instruction and stuff like I really want to be in it with them. So I think being able to communicate that in all the different ways of how we share, including email. So this is so good. I know we talked about a lot of things. How can people find you if they're interested in working with you? What are some ways they can reach out?
Of course. Thank you so much, Suzy. So we'll have a link in the show notes. It's called a relationship-based email marketing strategy and template collection. And so that gives you a calendar and it's not like dated for a specific month. So it's like a blank calendar with 30 or 31 days. And inside of that, there is 6 different email templates that you can rotate through month after month to have just a really client-centered email marketing strategy that also promotes your offers and makes sales, right? So 6 emails with that. And then other than that, I am at jennyrothcopywriting.com and I'm on Instagram sometimes at Jenny Roth Copywriting.
And you did mention do you have a podcast? I can't remember.
I do have a podcast. It was
okay. I just have to say for those you listening, and this is so like entrepreneur brain. I forget to tell people I have a podcast.
I know.
I don't know if you do that. I'll be talking to people and I'll be like, so I can help you with this and we can build your business and we can do all the things. And then they go, and don't you have a podcast? I'm like, so you're not alone. No. So what is your podcast?
Yeah. So it's the email marketing podcast. So it's really easy to find if you're looking for email marketing. And yeah, once a week I come on there and just share what I see working in the email marketing world for clients I write for, my own business. And I just try to really break that down and make it accessible for everybody. So if a client and I are working on a strategy for email for a campaign or a funnel and we see it working really well, I'll be like, okay, here's a strategy I think you guys might want to try, so it's very real life and real in the moment. And yeah, I love doing that.
Thanks so much for that. And for the listeners out there, what is one thing that they could take away from after listening to this episode? What's something you recommend? Even for me, like we talked before I hit record. So I'm in the process of rebranding right now when this is recording. And I kind of cleaned up my list. I know some people might be shifting in their business, pivoting their business, or they haven't actually done anything with their email list for several months. What do you recommend when it comes to kind of restarting it or if you're going to shift?
This is such a good question. I think we've all been there. And my advice, it sounds silly, but I can say if you are, maybe you haven't emailed your list for a while, or, you're shifting topics, the thing that always comes to my head is like, don't make it weird. Like, don't feel like you have to come in and be like, hi, everyone. I didn't write for 3 months because, and like tell them your whole life story, or be like, hi, everyone, my rebrand, and like just tell it. You don't have to. You can just simply come in and be like, hey, everyone. It's been a while, long time to talk, however, whatever you want to say, and then just get into the topic of the email. Like, you don't have to over explain yourself. You can even just say like, hey everyone, I'm shifting focus and my emails going forward are going to be like this. Let's dig into the first one, and just like roll with it, and just trust that the beauty of email marketing too is like people literally raise their hand and sign up to be there, right? So they want to be there, right? And if what you are, they're probably so excited to hear from you again. And they're probably so excited for your pivot or your shift or whatever you're doing differently. And so just know that the only reason people unsubscribe is because it's not anything you said or did, or you didn't email for a long time or whatever. It's just, maybe it's not something they need right now. It's not relevant to them right now. And that's the only reason, right? It's nothing to do with you or your business or anything like that. So just get back into it and start. You just have to start. You can talk yourself out of it forever, so I think just getting that first one out there is really important.
Yeah, I like to say that. Just start in everything. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of like to do things to get a reaction sometimes, just to see who's paying attention. So not really giving the whole story, just being like, oh, hey, I'm back. And then just getting into it. And then you get replies that were like, oh my gosh, I see you changed your logo and this is different. It kind of gets her, because you don't tell them up front. So then people feel that like they want to comment on it because it's something new and exciting. So yeah, I love that. What is something that somebody listening just wants to get started with their either copywriting or an email list, or what would you recommend for them that they could do?
Yeah. So if you want to get started with your email list, I think my best advice would be to think about two things, right? So think about your email list have to have two purposes. It should serve, of course, it's serving your subscribers, right? So think about like, what is the purpose of this list for them? Like, why are they coming here? Are they coming here for advice on their health, on their business? Are they coming here for a daily quote, inspiration? Like, what is the purpose of this for them? And then on the flip side, what is the purpose of this list for you, right? So is this something, are you trying to make your email list like a money-making marketing channel in your business? Are you doing this because you want just another outlet to be creative? Do you want to just connect with people? Do you want to collaborate? Like, think about both of those things, because they both really, really matter. And on an entirely different note, I would say another really great piece of advice I wish I could leave everyone with is to kind of what we were talking about earlier, share more client wins. Share what you're working on, share how you're helping people, share testimonials. Like, I think we all do so much more than we think every week. And I think just taking the time to see that and document it is just a beautiful email strategy to start with.
I'm going to piggyback on that. So for those of you listening, if you're like, I don't know what to write email, what Jenny said, even if you just take notes throughout the week, what are some celebrations? What are some struggles that you overcame? Like, that's something that we could just be journaling about as business owners, all of us, myself included, and then create an email out of it. Like, you have all of the information. You can just write something from your heart that's just like, hey, week in review, or whatever you want to call it. And just get it on the page and just be like, hey, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm celebrating this client that had this amazing win this week, or I'm celebrating that I made it through the week when I had this struggle a challenge that I dealt with, and this is what I learned from it. Humanity, just being human in the email. Yes. So I'm going to say, do that.
Yeah, it's like,
because I think I need to do that. Like, I mean, I'm writing notes as we're recording. I'm like, okay, do that. I need to do that.
No, it's like, when in doubt, just document what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what's going on in your world. Like, it will matter to someone. Like, it will, someone can relate to that and can see themselves working with you through that. So yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for being here. I'll make sure that everything's in the show notes for anybody that's interested in reaching out to you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Suzy.
And for the listeners out there, as always, keep it simple.